thank you again for joining us. We really do appreciate it. Today, number 3 in this series, again, looking at business and how we can structure our work environments and our work life in a way that alleviates any suffering, any discomfort within the experience that we spend a lot of our time in, not just individually, but as a collective, as part of the organization that we've chosen to be a part of. And to take us through it is Dr. Jan Bellermann from the Conscious Leadership Academy on how to future-proof your organization. Thank you, Doc. Take it away.
Thank you, Guru. And it's wonderful to see you all. Great to see you, John. Long time. Excellent. Yeah, thanks for joining. Let's kick it off. I think after our AI webinar, we have seen what the big changes are that are coming along, so that the business will change, the society will change. Then we had the second webinar that was about how can we take the people through this transition. And then Regina was taking you through that, how we can lead people and guide people in these stormy times. And today we will look into how to prepare an organization for these times. So that should be a bit of an interactive session. So whenever you have a question, please feel free, open your mic and ask straight away. Or if you feel more comfortable with doing it on the chat, please do so. But let's interact, please. Good. Let's kick it off. Yeah, so the key questions today are, first of all, what will be these risks and what is coming our way from a perspective of a company or organization and the society as well? What will we face? And then the question is, of course, how can we find out how transformable our organization is? And what has consciousness to do with it? What has the consciousness of an organization to do with it? And finally, we will see how we can apply that and create a path for the teams and the people in the organization, how to do this and how we can master these upcoming challenges. But first of all, I would like to see from you and see if the interaction works. Please take out your smartphones, scan the QR code, and I would like to see what's your experience of the speed of change you see in these different areas. What's the fastest one? Is it business, political, technology, and so on? Rank it by speed. Please choose the fastest first, and then the second, and so on. And then we will see what your experience will be. Scan the QR code on the left upper side or join on slido.com, hashtag 2569290. We can see some movement here. But we can already see a trend, which is not surprising, I think. I'm more interested in place 2 and 3. Yeah, thank you. I think we go with it. Yeah, first, of course, technology change. That's really also something we will look into. And then number 2 is social change. And then The third fastest changes are political change. And then the slowest one is business change. Okay, that's your view. Thank you. I'm a little bit surprised about that the business change is number 4. Because I could imagine if I would speak to you tomorrow, you would, or even today, you would complain very much about all these changes that come along. But I'm looking forward to our discussion. And we are looking now at, this is coming from a book called The Law of Disruption by Larry Downes, and it was written in the year 2010. And already there, he was talking about that we have an exponential speed change of technology, and then we have social and business and political change. And I always looked at it from that perspective that, let's say, when the internet was coming along, then that was a technology change, so that was going first. And then suddenly we could find information in there and we would have emails available. And so the people jumped on it. And I remember when I started working, we had one email account for the whole team. But privately, you already had email available. And then, of course, the business started to see, oh, the people are in the internet. That's a market out there. We can go and we can sell. And then so the business was following. And I think even today we are struggling to see the right laws or the necessary laws to be in place to have a fair internet trade. So I think that's at least my perspective, and that was the perspective 10 years ago. So I was also quite interested if you see the business now in front of the social or not, but you voted business as the last. So at least I think the first 2 ranks we could agree to. Let's look into technology a little bit more. And there was a book. It's written by Ray Kurzweil. He was the Google's former AI director, and he was looking into it, and he was saying that the computers would surpass the human brain power around 2030. And in 2045, he was expecting then that the intellectual power of the machine would surpass even all existing brains on this planet. And he called that point, he called technological singularity. And what he meant with it, he says, nobody really knows what happens after that, because that's such a fundamental shift in human history, and we cannot even imagine what will be possible today at that time then. I'm not so sure that it will take so long, because if we look now into the recent changes and the speed of the AI coming along, I'm not so sure anymore if it really takes so long. But what I can tell you is definitely with these new technologies come along, that we have innovative business, new business models, new ways of operating, and then the people will be creative. And then if you are able to be adaptable with your organization, you have unimaginable business opportunities from my perspective. But therefore, we really need to prepare our organizations as well. So let's look a little bit into the risks that are coming our way. And this is coming from the World Economic Forum, from the Global Risk Report 2024. So it's pretty new. And the question was, which of the following best characterizes your outlook for the world over the following 2 time periods? And the first one is short-term period. What are you expecting over the next 2 years? That's the upper part. And it comes in different colors. So the dark red one, that's a stormy one. That's really saying, hey, the catastrophic risks are looming around. And then the orange ones are turbulent, which means it's elevated risk. And then the unsettled one, we have some instability and moderate risks. And then we have stable and calm. But what you can see, there's a big jump from 2 years to 10 years. And when we look into who was asked here to contribute, there were 1,500 people, from experts, from academia, from the governments, from the social experts. So it's quite a range of people who have contributed to that. And for me, it's quite surprising that they really say, okay, we are already looking into a very turbulent phase. And if you look at it, it's significantly, especially the long-term period. Any comments from your side? Is this something that you would agree to, or is this something you find quite strange?
I think I fundamentally agree, Jan. I think there's a lot of risks floating around right now that could manifest into some very challenging circumstances for all of us.
Thanks, Rob. Then let's look into it, what the current risks are, because they asked the second question, and this second question was, please select up to 5 risks out of a list that they had there, which you believe are most likely to present a material crisis on a global scale this year. And here you can see, number 1 is extreme weather. We are currently sitting in Germany and the cities are full of floods. So I think the people who have voted for that have been quite good in their anticipation. Number 2 is AI-generated misinformation and disinformation. So I think the people are understanding more and more that AI is not always giving the full truth. And then number 3 is social and political polarization. Yeah, we have now many elections coming around, and I see Rob nodding. So certainly my friends from the US see
I'm
this.
in Colorado. it's a shit show, pardon my French.
Yeah. Same here in Europe. I think the polarization is on the way. And then the cost of living crisis. Yeah, that's what we see. The inflation is going up. And then number 5 is cyber attacks. And you can see from the left side the risk categories. There's a blue one as well, an economic category, but it's not coming up in the 5 in the top 5. But let's see now what's happening when they look deeper into the 2 years. That was the current one for this year. And then when we look 2 years ahead or 10 years ahead, please just have a read through. So Tonya is saying, I certainly wouldn't have thought of number 2 as a big risk. Yeah, currently sitting in Germany and the floods in many cities, it is. And I think in other areas we also see extreme weather. And when we look into the 10 years, it's becoming pretty obvious that the environmental risks are the top risks that people are expecting. Extreme weather, critical change to Earth systems, biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, natural resources shortages, And then we come with, okay, Tonya. Tonya was referring to the AI technology misinformations. Yes, I think AI will certainly be a big challenge to find out what is true, what is not true, because AI is pretty good in making things up. What do you think of
For
this?
me, as a observation, is that 10 years ago, nobody would have thought, the apprentice guy would have been president of the States, or we would have had a global pandemic. So even at looking at this 10-year prediction, I think when we get to 10 years' time, that list will be completely different, but it certainly gives an impression of where our current focus is and where we're looking towards.
Yes, thank you. I would agree to that. Any other comments? Any surprises? Or are you fully agreeing? Yeah, Rob says we have not properly cared for the planet. Yes, that's coming our way, especially for the ones who have kids. We certainly will have some more to come.
Jan, it's Dilly. I think in addition to the climate weather changes, an example is in Durban on the east coast of South Africa. This week, they experienced a tornado. It's never, ever been experienced before. So I would say the climate, the weather patterns is definitely. But to me, looking at everything that's going on around the world, I believe there's 180 some odd wars going around the world currently. One of the biggest issues that I see, other than climate and weather, is the uncertainty and the risks around the geopolitical situation. I think we're going to be in for a very, very interesting time. The so-called global north and what is called an aggregation of the south. And all the things you're seeing in Europe with right-wing parties, etc., etc. That's going to have a huge impact on how business behaves and what happens.
Thank you, Dilly. Perfect. That's really a good introduction to the next slide, because this is the business view. So we are moving away from the social views and the academic. So this is the CEO outlook. That's a KPMG survey, was done in last September. So it's also pretty recent. And I added the 2022 version as well, so you could see the changes. And number one in 23 is exactly what Dele said, the geopolitics and the political uncertainty, and especially here in Europe and in the Middle East, with the plus, Dele said, we had 108 wars or 110 armed conflicts around it. We have 2 billion people who are living in these conflicted areas. When we look at AI and the impact, we are not sure where to invest at the moment. Some companies hold back because they don't know where it's going. Others are completely investing, but they don't know what they are really buying. 57% see the ethical changes as the number one concern around AI. The supply chains, you can see here, that's something what we learned out of COVID. So that's the globalization versus regionalization. And then the ESG, that's definitely a must for the reputation. And we have seen the risks with the climates coming around, so we have to do something. And then we have growing interest rates. And for me, also very interesting is the talent competition. How do you win the talents? The biggest attraction from my perspective are the innovation part. If you are innovative for society, so that you're working for a company that has a great reputation there, and the a fantastic organizational culture that really makes a difference. But the question from my side now is to you, please let us know which challenges are your priority in the coming years. What are you expecting to come along? Just let us know. So either scan the QR code or please join on slido.com. What are the challenges that are a priority for you in the coming years? Cyber attack, interest rates, regulatory changes, macroeconomic uncertainty, polarization. Geopolitics, economy. Yeah, that's good because from your perspective, we now are getting that the economy is impacted. World War III, another one. Yeah, that's a possibility. Shrinking population. Okay. Thank you very much. It's very much in line what we have seen before. Aging society. Yes, definitely. That's a good one. So now let's look into how life responds to these challenges. What is life normally doing when challenges come along? How is nature responding to it? It's simply finding a way and evolving. Every time it's evolving and moving into a next stage, which is able to address the challenges. So for example, here, what we can see is we have, let's say on the left-hand side, we start with a molecule. Yeah, we have several molecules which are forming a single cell. And this single cell that is next one is a higher organism. It has an own immune system. It has power. It has a digestion system, and it can survive on its own. And when these cells are starting to bond and form an organ, so in this one I choose a liver, yeah, this is also a higher order function. And then in the next stage, these organs are starting to cooperate and form a body. And in this body, we have 100 trillion cells and they work as one system. And when we move outside of the body, then now into the organizations, many bodies are forming a team and many teams are forming an organization. And that is allowing us, again, a much higher functionality. And then we have several organizations that can collaborate and as a big network, as a big alliance network. So with each step, what we are seeing here, the ability to overcome more complex challenges is rising. So we are getting better and better to overcome these challenges. When we look at the organizations, we need to understand these things don't happen overnight. It takes a while and then it happens in steps. But when we look into the evolution of organizations, the very first ones were these tribal gangs, street gangs or militia that we had. We had few rules, no structure, and the focus really was on the power, on the strongest person there. And then to be more what was needed was more structure. So the focus was on more structure. So the army was created, and to be able to execute in a fast, repetitive way. Yeah? And the focus here is on the top leader, so it's all top down, but you have a very predictable structure. The next step was in the evolution, this structure needs to become more efficient. Yeah, so like in a factory, every operation can be optimized and we can ensure a high output. And the focus of these organizations is simply on productivity. And then the next step is you start with a network of people who have the same goal like you, like your stakeholders or like your value chain. So that's a cooperation of several organizations, and you are much stronger again and much more flexible again. And then in the last step, we understand, hey, it's not just our network. We are one ecosystem, and this one ecosystem is the business plus societies plus the environment. They are not independent from each other. Yeah? So if the environment doesn't work, the society is not thriving, and the society cannot produce the necessary labor resources for the businesses. So everything is totally interconnected here. We have to understand we are one big interconnected global system. So the question for us was now, how can we now find out where an organization is? And when we looked around, we found there's from the MIT, in theory, Otto Schama and his colleagues, they have investigated thousands of organizations, and they came up with these 4 different operating systems, which are quite similar to what we just looked at. And the operating system number 1, what they had was the driving force was the input. That's an input-driven organization. An example for that is the army. The advantages here are, of course, you are pretty fast in making decisions because this is just the one person at the top. And you have a stability there, they have predictability there, and you're pretty good in repetitive operations. The challenges of this stage are overcoming rigid rules and the structures. And of course, the employees are not feeling very well and motivated here, because everyone who was in the army knows how that feels when you get told all the time what to do. So the next step was this operating system number 2, which is then the output-driven one, the efficiency-driven one. And the example here is a machine or a factory. And the advantage was the high performance and the productivity. And you have standardized processes and systems here, which help you to speed up the whole thing. The challenges here are you have high stress for the employees because we are very much driven by competition. Internally as the same as externally. And because everything is so standardized and optimized, we are not so flexible anymore to adapt to coming changes, external changes. Then we have the operating system number 3. This is the stakeholder interests. It is more like you work in a big family or a big friendly with many friends. You have a strong culture, often based on shared values. And the employees feel much more satisfied, and therefore they are much more engaged. The challenges here are you need to maintain the efficiency while you ensure the inclusivity, and the diversity and everything, because now you suddenly have several stakeholders. They all are sitting at the desk and they have different perceptions and different ideas. So you have to manage that. And then in the number 4, the ecosystem needs, we are acting like one living organism. That means we are highly innovative because we can use the collective intelligence. We have a holistic worldview there. We are sustainably growing, and the driver here is an evolutionary purpose. We have, or some people call it a higher purpose. And the challenges here are, of course, the complexity, because here the people feel empowered. they are able to make their own decisions. They can work more autonomically. And yeah, it's not so easy to transition from old hierarchical organizations into self-managed structures. And the challenge also is the effective communication and the decision-making in a decentralized environment. Because if you having teams, an organization just working in project teams or project groups working together, then the communication needs to be very effective, and also it needs to work compared to the older structures. Any questions so far to these different systems? These are the groups these gentlemen identified, and we thought that's a quite good idea to find out how adaptable these organizations are, because what they have seen is that with each of these steps, the ability increased to deal with complex challenges and growth. Because let's say if you have a family-owned business with one traditional leader at the top, it's not a scalable organization. Yeah? You just have one person at the top. But if you are growing and growing and the needs are there, this person has its limit. And therefore, you sooner or later hit the threshold and you have to grow. So the question for us was now, because when the clients are coming, hey, what can we do? How can we prepare for the future? We thought, what can we do to find out and help them, and also use this kind of operating system, because then we know where they are. And what we then said, we looked into our experience. Where are things going wrong? Why are organizations failing? Then we ended up with communication, collaboration, contribution, innovation, all these governance things that we have seen here. It's always the same things. And it all has one root cause, and that's the consciousness. Because everything starts with a single thought inside and finally gets expressed in the outside world. Let's take an example. Like you are in fear of not meeting your targets. Huh? When you are not in fear, your brain is not fully functional and it has not full access to all its intelligence. You would just repeat a solution from that has worked in the past, but in a fast changing world like what we have seen there, that it's an exponentially changing world, that's not very clever. But it is like it is, we are in fear. So therefore, we are communicating with fear, and that has an impact. Yeah? So our state has an impact into the way we are communicating. And we are probably spreading the fear in our team as well. That affects the collaboration, how this team works together when they are in fear as well. And then when the contribution is also affected, because if we are in fear, then we are not so happy in sharing the stuff that we currently have, and we are not contributing to society, or we're not contributing to the outside world in the way that we had. And when we are in fear, again, the innovation, we are not very creative in fear. We are fast, and we could be fast in fear and in repeating things from the past, but not come up with good ideas as well. And then the governance is just the framing structure around the whole thing. So what we have done is we have overlaid these 6 key operating domains, which we see the drivers for every success. We have that overlaid to this operational model from MIT. And out of that, so I just take one example, the communication. The communication in the first step, that's a command and obey version. In the efficiency-driven one, you have a professional distance, what we have. And the stakeholder one, when you are more with friends and family, then you have more empathy and you feel connected. And in the stage 4, you feel compassionate and you care about each other. So basically, you're working for each other. That's how we call it in the collaboration. And in all these stages, we have different ways of operating it. So the question is now, how can we find out where the organizations are? And before we do that, I would like to know from you, where do you think most organizations are operating today? Are they operating in the input-driven way, or in the efficiency-driven way, in the stakeholder-driven way, or in the ecosystem way? Please let us know. Again, scan with the QR code or go on Slido and let us know what your expectations are. We can already see a trend. Some are already seeing stakeholder-driven organizations. That's great. But the majority of us is pretty clear that we are seeing efficiency-driven ones. And that's what we see. That's what we also see when we are working with our customers. Many of them are focusing on efficiency instead of adaptability. So we are optimizing the stuff, but we are not focusing on that we are able to adapt fast to the new changes. And this is a lot easier in a stakeholder-driven organization. Thank you. That's great. So at least from our perspective here, we totally align with your view. The question from us is now, how do we find out where is an organization? When an organization comes around the corner and asks us, hey, how can you help us? How can we prepare for the future? What we have done is, out of the model that you have just seen here, we have created an online assessment. The people can do that. You can structure all the data that you have by all these hierarchies and so hierarchy levels. You can structure it by gender, age, business units, organizational units, whatsoever. But I want to take a real example now. This is, we are doing this now. We are testing this now since 9 months. We had just the first team running through it a second time. But let's look at this example. This is an international software provider. They have 600 employees, and the executive team that took part in the survey are 8 people. And what we are seeing here is just the result from the executive team. And the executive team here, this is the overall result for all these 4 operating systems, and they are telling that they see themselves operating mainly from the 3rd stage, from the stakeholder-driven perspective. That's their perspective. And when we look into the matrix, then the matrix looks like that. What stands out for you? You can see from the color code, the dark blue ones is more than 50% of the people are there. Then the lighter blue ones, more than a third, a fourth. So the color code is telling you, helping you to identify where the majority of the people voted.
Yeah, Jan, it's Dilly. I think on the stakeholder-driven, and given it's an IT software company, I think the largest percentage is the individual contributions.
Yes. Thank you.
And I'm busy driving, so I cannot participate by input. But I also wanted to say, when you showed the input-driven efficiency ecosystem stakeholder, my comment was going to be, you cannot apply it blanket. You need to look at industry sectors. And I think the software company you have as an example, with the exception of probably old companies like IBM or Hewlett Packard, most of the other companies have been developed in the last few decades or still developing as we go. So, and they also employ a much younger population versus industrial companies.
Yes. Totally with you, Dilly. It's not just by industry. We think you can only do it individually by organization because they all have their own history. And yeah, definitely. If you are talking to a production company which have a lot of factory workers in the organization compared to, let's say, a law firm who have just purely office workers, then it's completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Agreed, Jan.
Good. So without going now to the details, that's the view of the exec team. What would be your expectation? Are there people, is their organization having the same view? I see nodding heads. No.
Yeah, I mean, if I can come in here with
Yes,
some
please.
behind the scenes info and adding on to what Delhi said about the sample size, and seeing that the worldview of the executives being stakeholder driven, being an inclusive environment where they consider the various opinions for the executives. But with this specific company, knowing the background is that their current priority is to divest a portion of the business, obviously for investment for growth. But in that 1 year process that they've set themselves to divest a portion of shares, is that in tightening up the finances, there will be a tranche of retrenchments. Yet the worldview maintains that even with that decision of letting certain people go, we are inclusive. So yes, and on your question, Jan, about what would the rest of the organization think, I think the sample definitely does shift dramatically, and that also points out the areas of the business that require some attention.
Yes, thank you. That's exactly the case. What we see here is on the left-hand side, we see the exec team, and on the right-hand side, we see the 600 employees. Of course, not everybody took part, but you have much higher sample rates. We had several hundred people taking part here. Yeah, what are the differences?
I mean, clearly the employees lean more towards the efficiency-driven perception of the organization.
Yes.
And the executives are proud of themselves for listening to their team to the best of their ability and patting themselves on the back, of creating this wonderful culture. But in reality, the employees largely feel that it's just efficiency-driven.
Yep, exactly. That's the point. So you can also...
Interestingly, though, there is a strong feeling of contribution in spite of the overwhelming efficiency-driven perception. There is still some decent contribution going on. Wait, am I catching that correctly? No, I am not.
Yes. No, you are.
I am. Yeah, yes. Yep. There you go. 64%. Yep.
Yeah. So there's a big alignment there, but for these guys, it was because they were contributing to society and they were part of social projects. So therefore, they all felt proud of that. So they totally align there. Other than that, we really can see, especially here in the 41%. So they don't see from a consciousness perspective the consciousness that the stakeholders see amongst themselves. But the biggest difference is in communication, because the communication, they see the biggest part in the input driven, so that's the top-down communication, while the exec team thinks, oh, they are listening to the others and are much more, which could be the case inside of this team. So because definitely they only see a part of their organization, but that's exactly why we do this, because they are living in their bubble. And don't see the full organization. And here you can see, oh, the organization is completely looking in a different way. So I think when we look into I think there's a good alignment on governance, what we can see, and there's a good alignment on contribution. And there's also somewhat an alignment on innovation, but innovation is certainly not the strength here. But the first three are the most difficult ones. So let's look at these. From an overall perspective, the employees are not too far away from the exec team. So they also see that the majority so that the organization is driven from a stakeholder perspective in total, but it's not the same height of it, and there's much more. They see much more efficiency driven than the exec team. When we go to the consciousness side of it, what we see here is that the executive team thinks, we are quite well underway already. So they are between stakeholder driven and even ecosystem driven, while the employees are sharing that what we can see is from a consciousness perspective, then you are more in the efficiency side of it. And of course, we cannot measure the consciousness, but what we can measure is what we can see here is the behavior, and the behavior, how they are acting and how they are thinking. And I think the executive team is rating themselves more from a perspective how they are thinking, because they know what they are thinking. But the executive team, but the employees are rating their exec team based on their deeds, on the behavior. So therefore, it seems to be a difference there. If we look into the collaboration, it looks like they really have a good culture, at least also for the employees. It's between efficiency driven and stakeholder driven. But it's not as good as the executive was thinking. But it's a sign that the collaboration is not too bad. So they are already on their way out of efficiency driven into a values driven stakeholder organization. But the worst case is the communication. In the communication, we have completely different views. That's what you can see here. There is totally a misalignment. So the employees are more experiencing the top-down way and the efficiency-focused communication rather than the other way around. So
Jan, it's really, I'm
Please.
sorry to interrupt, Jan. It's Dilly. So if you look at the exec, the big bar percentage on the exec team, if you're looking at stakeholders to execs, they're typically the board, the shareholders, etc. So they have to communicate that, including the analysts, if you listed in the stock exchange, etc.
Absolutely. Yes, that's part of their work. So this is why they think about it. This is why they think about the stakeholder. But their people perceive the communication in a different way. And this is exactly why, as a next step, then we are sitting with the teams and we are having the dialogue. Why are we having so different perspectives? So out of this matrix, we see where to start. You see what to do, and you see where to. Let's move back before I go there. Out of this one, you know where the hot topics are. You know immediately where to start, because in most organizations, we don't know where to start and where to focus on, because we see so many areas that could be improved. But here you immediately know what's the best, or where is the best way to start that transformation. And in this case, we had then I'm looking at the communication part. You have the typical questions. How often do they communicate? Are they using diverse communications channels, or are they just sending out an email from the CEO to all the people? But because we know that employees, some people like to read emails, others are not reading emails. They only listen to one-to-one talks from their direct managers. Others like town halls, or whatever you have as a communications channels. You need to repeat that same message over and over again. And then the next question is, do we have the needed content, or is this just what the people think, what the executive team think, what the people are needing? And are we using the wrong language? If you are talking to the production teams, of course you need to speak a different language than compared to the office workers. Yeah. Then do we have transparency of the decisions? What's happening there? Is this communicated, or are there rumors spreading around? Is there a two-way communication at all? Is the executives team understanding what the needs and the problems of the people are? Or are we in an organization where we are having conflicts? Yeah? Or is the message not given in an authentic way? Yeah, because very often we can hear the message from the top, oh, we are the best, but everybody already knows that we aren't, yeah? Because we know the daily problems. So many points here, but you know where to start. This is what you can address. They can sort it out, and then we expect them, when they run through this this survey again, we will find out that they hopefully improved. In the end, we know out of the report the strength. So in this case, it was they have a very strong stakeholder focus. They had also a very established ethical behavior in the company, and they had a very good teamwork, which was based on relationships. And that's pretty cool. So the idea was, when you work with them, what are the concrete ideas how to use these strengths more often? And in this case, it was quite obvious. Why don't we take that strength of the teamwork and the established ethic behavior, and why don't we use that and bring it into the relationships with our stakeholders as well? And that's exactly what they did. And now this kind of advanced culture and ethical behavior, they do also now with their stakeholders. And on the other hand, what you also find out, what are the most urgent growth opportunities? In our case, we have seen it's definitely the approach to communication, but what we have also seen is, and there they had alignment. The exec team was very clear that the innovation isn't the best, and the employees also told that the innovation isn't the best. So therefore, you have to look into it, what you can do here. We also found in this company the approach to sustainability is not as far as they are selling it to the outside world, and that's also reflected by the employees. So here then you can really work on a concrete transformation plan, including what you need. Could be training, or could be yeah, we are very much always pushing for experiments, because we don't know if it will work or not. But when the culture is good enough, then we are always pushing for experiments, because then you can see what is possible. Any questions so far? Good. Then, before we come to an end, I would like to jump to another example here, another case. This is an international consumer goods, and this is only looking at the leadership team now. And we had 42 people in the leadership team, and that's the overall distribution. So the leadership team is seeing themselves on their way out of the efficiency-driven operating system into a stakeholder-driven operating system. And when we look at the matrix, this is the matrix. What stands out for you, or what's getting obvious? Not so easy on the first glance, but this is why I took this example. I think it's very obvious that they have a quite good contribution. They are very high on that. So they know that they have a contribution, that they are looking into the common good as well. They have a good way in the governance, which means they have, in this stage, they have ethical behavior, ethical rules in place. And also the collaboration is, so the culture is also somewhere between efficiency-driven and stakeholders, so not too bad either. But what stands out is in the consciousness layer, they are very much on the efficiency-driven side of it. That means that they are breathing, living, and thinking in a way of increasing efficiency. And when we looked deeper, then we can see that the contribution, so the common good and the governance, the ethical behavior, this is very much on a concept basis. They follow this as a nice concept and a path. That's good to start with, but when you are not growing your consciousness here, what happens when you enter a crisis, the first thing that you will stop is all these nice concepts, and you go back to the profit orientation and to the efficiency. So for this team, it's not about looking into innovation, because it could also be something, if you look at this slide here, the innovation approach isn't the best either. Yeah, so we could do there. But for this team, the discrepancy between the concept, the mental intelligence they have, and the emotional and living, or the consciousness, their worldview, there's a big discrepancy. And that means the first crisis they will face, the whole building will collapse. And therefore, for this team, it means we have to focus first, instead of innovation or communication. The first thing is we have to work with the leaders, that they start to change their mindsets and they start to think in different ways and come up with different ideas, which move more into a stakeholder approach, because otherwise the whole thing will not work. Okay, that was basically it from a case study perspective. I would like to close with this one. Of course, nobody knows what will come. But I like this phrase very much. The best way to predict the future is to create it. Because then you are part of the whole story, you are engaging and you are doing it. And yeah, with that, I would like to open questions and answers.
You're welcome.
Any other question or comment?
I guess I'm questioning myself right now about how our team perceives, which structure we're operating under. I think the executive team would very much so maybe even be leaning a bit even towards the ecosystem level when we think about the organization. But the communication discrepancy really has my kind of curiosity. What are the structures around the communication that more aligns with, and it may have been covered in the slide and I wasn't focused there when you shared this, but what are the characteristics of the communication in the various systems?
Yeah, in the first one, it's top down. In the second one, it's like a professional distance. This is we are, because when I remember when I was starting to work and was taking my first leadership positions, that was how I was trained in the leadership trainings development. they told me, hey, you need to stay away. You need to have a distance to your team, because if you need to take tough decisions, you need to have a professional distance. This is how they told us to be. It took me a while to find out that's not that's not how to motivate your people. And you know this because you are quite a good motivator for your team. So that's yeah, it's differently. So in the next stage, it's about empathy and connection. Yeah, it's you really how can you connect to the people? It's more that you are starting to relate to them on a personal level. And then in the last stage, it's really about caring. It's not just the empathy. You really start to care about each other. So you basically, you could say, you start to work for each other. It's not against each other or with each other, or it's for each other.
Thank you for that. Just wanted to make sure leaving this meeting today, I was clear.
Thank you, Rob. Any other questions?
Jan, perhaps you could touch on the different organizations or types of organizations, and what would be most effective for their goals and their definition of success from, an authoritarian-driven NGO that may score very high on contribution to, perhaps an army, an actual army as an organization, NDF or whoever, IDF.
Yes, Guru, that's a nice thing. For me, it comes down to the individual organization. You really have to look into it, how they are, where they want to go. You could definitely have a nice vision in place and a great purpose which is there, but if the communication isn't there or the caring for the people isn't there, that is only one side of the equation is done and the other doesn't fit. Yeah. And each organization is different, and you have to understand where you want to go, and you have to align. And for me, the biggest part is always the misalignment between and the bigger the organization, the more it is the misalignment between the senior leadership teams and the employees at the ground, at the floor, who have to do the work. And this is why in the ecosystem world, let's say when you are starting to move into self-managed organizations, then also the decision power is moving from, let's say, in the army, from the top. And the army is a good example, because the army is now seeing that in modern conflicts, in modern wars, you cannot work like the old army anymore. It's maybe you have heard like the team of teams and things like that. There's a different way of leading organizations and agile teams in that way. So the army has to adapt as well, because in that structure it doesn't work anymore. To be flexible. So the decision making is pushed to the in our case, from a business perspective, to the customer. It's the closer you are, the decisions need to be taken there where they are needed. And the organization, if you can build an organization around that, then it's perfect. You are super fast, because the decision can be immediately taken, and you don't have to go through so many sign-off stages, which are slowing the whole thing down. But on the other hand, you need to have the right people. Let's say if you have an organization that has been trained or educated or conditioned over the last years that the boss is always telling them what to do, they are not used to they are not empowered to think their own thoughts and to work in autonomy and take their own decisions. So one time we had one case where a leader was coming and saying, hey, I want my organization to move to holacracy, which is really a very high form of self-management. And then we said, then let's look first into if you have the right people to do that, because otherwise you're killing your organization. And when we looked into it, and we looked into it through a values survey to see where the people are. And the people are so much full of fear, and these people will not take the decisions, even if you would tell them by their role description that they can make these decisions. It will take some time to move there, and not everybody will. So we told him better not to do it. Any other questions?
Jan, thank you so
Tatjana.
much for inviting me. I'm very, very impressed, first of all. And yeah, I know that a lot of organizations I know will be very, very surprised to see your analysis and your experience. So I'm thinking, so you are absolutely right, but how to find the key to the right people in the organization to talk to them, to understand that that they need the right right concept, right way, right strategy, so human capital strategy to achieve their business strategy. So because the thinking is I did as well MBA, you know, there's like only business view. Okay, the module of human capital, we know that is talent, people, education, training, and nothing about psychology or consciousness or something like this. I was talking to one company about their conscious training, and the answer I got was really surprising me, because they say it's not aligned with our philosophy. We don't want to go very, very deep into the psychology, any psychology or any personal personality. So because it's if the new people coming, then they probably will feel that under pressure or must be aligned with all these goals. You know what I want to explain, probably I cannot explain very good, because every company they have strategy. Yeah, they have strategy. So how to fit this new way of consciousness leadership into the strategy, because this is completely different philosophy, completely different values, and these values is not included in the company's philosophy at all at the moment.
Yeah, for me there are only two ways. Like in every transformation project, there are only two ways for the people to move. The motivation is only twofold. One is you are either having so much pain that you're starting to move. So that means either for these people with their strategy, it's not working and the money is not coming in, or the competitors are going faster or better or something like that. So they have the pain, and they already tried all other ways and nothing worked. So then they start to ask, and hey, do you have a different way? So that's possible. Or the other part is, and that's unfortunately the more rare one, is that one of the leaders is more or less waking up and starting to think about these things. So it's for these leaders, it's suddenly getting so attractive. Yeah. So Rob was on the call here. He is certainly one of them. Yeah. He's a perfect example for me to combine both ways. He's very much able to drive the efficiency in the strategy, but he is also able to drive the culture, and now the consciousness growth. So this is, but he also needed to start somewhere. Yeah? It's just you hear maybe a talk, or maybe you read a book or you watch a movie or something like that, and that inspires you to walk that way. But these are only the two ways that I see. Unfortunately, for most of us, it's always the pain part. We have to run against the wall first to think about if we find a door somewhere else.
Yeah, I think for the big companies, they both ways that are very, very like far away.
Not all of them, but I would say most of them. And for them, we must say it's not so easy to implement this. If you have thousands of employees, you can start at the top, but then if you're not starting at the top, that's what we also sometimes see, that you have the sponsorship from the top, but they come with an idea and say, hey, you need to fix the employees. There's something wrong with them. I told them so many times, but they are not listening. So that is more the communication issue and a consciousness issue at the top, and not a problem with the employee. But this is, you have to make that experience. Otherwise, you don't learn it.
But I love the view you presented. I love it, really.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you, Tatiana.
Thank you. So we should talk afterwards.
A short comment from my side. All this technological change ahead and artificial intelligence, maybe we can imagine that we leave all this focus on efficiency to artificial intelligence and try to, the people, not with people, but we all as people work together on the higher levels. Thank you very much, Jan.
Thank you, Günther. Yeah, I'm totally with you. My personal theory is that it's like with any other tool. When I look at my kids, they are not very good in calculating mathematics in their head anymore, because they grew up with all these calculators in their watches and in their, so they don't know how to do it. So and I think that's the same thing what will happen to us sooner or later, because the artificial intelligence will take over the thinking part of it. So we as human beings, we will get less and less, more and more lazy and not think so much anymore. We will simply rely on what the tool tells to us. And this is why if the tool tells to us something strange, then we will follow it as the truth. But we have no clue anymore if that's the truth or not. So I think at the same time, we need to strengthen our emotional intelligence, our intuitive intelligence, things like that, because that's the only way because you always have a gut feeling. If someone tells you 1 + 1 is 11, could be because maybe the logic is you just add the other one to the first one and then you have 11. So that could be the logic, yeah. But if your gut feeling is telling you, oh, that can't be right. If I have one apple and another apple, I only have 2 apples, yeah. So I think that's really the way for us to go, and the people need to prepare for these kind of intuitive intelligence ways.
I think with regard, Jan, to the fears around AI, I've been playing chess lately just to help my mind go to sleep, and the advanced level is, 4 moves ahead, and the algorithm in there can think so much better than the human mind. In my experience, I just haven't mastered maybe 4 to 5 steps ahead like the computer. But it made me realize that the way that we protect ourselves against AI, oddly, is with AI. I think there will be AI for bad, and there will be AI for good. Yeah. And that the only way to combat something that powerful is to simply use the same, fight fire with fire, the old saying, right? Yeah. And we're going to have to evolve those technologies. How are we going to prevent against cyber attacks? Well, they're using AI to hack our systems. Well, we need to be using AI to protect our systems, and we're beginning to do this now. So it's not all bad. the AI movement. I wished that the greeters at the restaurant that I was at yesterday would have been AI, because they would have been so much more friendly and pleasant. The culture in the restaurant was terrible. You could just see the leader and the energy. And I thought, man, all of these people are going to be replaced with computers soon. So anyway.
Yeah. Thank you, Rob. Thank you so much for being here and being so engaged. Otherwise, I would just talk to the to my own presentation here. And I wish you, wherever you are, either a good day ahead or a wonderful evening. Thank you so much. See you next time.